most of that is, I'm guessing, is probably grown on the West Coast, and is that something?
The almonds certainly, I don't know about the hemp. And,
Yeah.
you know, we're just gonna have problems everywhere. It's just a really tricky, thing to deal with, really tricky. But, I'm still gonna guess maybe that it's a little bit safer than dairy products.
And even dairy from like Vermont or like Stonyfield
Well,
Farm?
Vermont has their own nuclear power plants
Right.
too.
What it is, it's the radiation that falls from the sky and it lands on the grass, and then the cows eat the grass.
When Michelle and I were in Albany in our heyday of Indian Point activism,
I remember that day.
we were in the Department of Health complaining vociferously about Indian Point, you gotta shut down, you know, because you know, when you get started as an activist, you're just so passionate and everybody has to see it your way, and how could they be so stupid? So we're letting this all out, and one of the Department of Health employees, a gentleman, is trying to act really cool and calm and settle us down, and he says, well, you know, the Department of Health tests the milk for radiation. And we jumped out of our seats and we said, what? You test the milk for radiation? Why don't we read about this? Why isn't it in the newspaper? We don't ever see anything about this. And he knew immediately that he had said something he probably shouldn't have said. But you can call and nobody's gonna give you information. Although I did read something online, I believe, which mentioned that nobody is testing milk anymore because it's been so consistently over the decades showing up with so much radiation that they don't bother testing it anymore. I mean, and I don't know how true that is or not. But I also read online yesterday, my past 2 days have been consumed with this evening's preparations. So there was another blurb which said some years ago that one of the photography companies was going to sue the government or someone who was producing radioactive something or another because it might ruin their paper, their photography paper. And so the government decided to give them the warning about, must have been above ground testing. It had to do with something that was going to let some kind of radioactive in the atmosphere that might interfere with their paper. But nobody was giving the dairy farmers information. You know, I mean, that's how business controls. We say the government, the government, the government. The government really, excuse me, Joel, are just puppets for corporate interests.
We're public servants.
Yeah. That same fellow, his name was Ramawe, Dr. Ramawe, I remember, and he said a little bit of radiation in your milk will not hurt you. And I had that on film, and I just want to tell you something that I didn't get a chance to say before, but that there is something for your immune system, and it's been incredibly suppressed. If you go to Friday's New York Times, you're finding that people are migrating to Colorado to help their children who have had seizures. Some of these kids were just about dead, and they're getting this thing called Charlotte's Web and oil, and it's made out of cannabis with very little not the psychoactive stuff. So the kids are not getting high. People still laugh when you talk about it, and it's really it gets me really upset, because what I've found from my chiropractor, Lori Morris, told me about this movie, What If Cannabis Could Cure Cancer? And it can, and there's all kinds of evidence about it. And if you look up Charlotte's Web, or you look up Friday's New York Times, people are migrating from New York, from all over the place, where it's legal. So that, again, for your immune system, not that we can get it that easily. Actually, they just legalized it for pets, so you can get, I told them I had like a 200-pound pet, but, and it's not psychoactive, it doesn't make you high, what it does is it really, we have an endocannabinoid system, which is 70 million years old. I mean, not in each one of us, but yeah, like before when we were like sea sponges or whatever, and that's in that movie, and all kinds. And my husband was laughing at me like everybody else, and we just took down one one after another scientific study. And this endocannabinoid system, the cannabinoids from cannabis hook up with it and they strengthen your immune system. So it's something really important that people should be really, and I think when people see that families are migrating to Colorado from New York and other places, that we're gonna be getting the legalization for medical marijuana.
There's a gentleman in the back who wants to say something.
Yeah, you asked about